Hey guys, today we're gonna learn how to draw a daisy flower. I'm going to simplify this just because I know that drawing flowers could be a challenge. So we're gonna start with something you're familiar with. We're going to draw two circles. One of them is going to be a standard one, and then you're going to draw another circle around that same circle, but you need to make sure that you leave about an inch of space. So that way you guys are blocking in your space for the center of your flower and the petals. Okay, so now in the middle, I am going to go ahead and do some markings and also above, so that way you guys have even spaces um, around each section. So you make sure you use the technique that I've taught you before, which is using your fingers to kind of like create some space, and then make sure that it's even in all sides, so that way your flower could look proportional. Okay, now I'm going to go ahead and start drawing some curved lines around that center circle, and that's going to represent that little section in the center of the flower that has this kind of like bumpy um, round details. It's a lot of them, so you want to make it simple. So that's why I drew these curved lines. Now from the center, you guys are going to start drawing some circles, and they need to be all together, kind of like mushed. They look like there's no space at all. However, I don't want you to kind of like draw circles over circles. I want you to draw circles next to circles. You just want to make sure that you don't leave any space around them or in between, because you want to again make them look like they're all together, and that's what's going to help give this center of the flower that effect to make it look like it. Okay, these are beautiful flowers, um, but they have a lot of details in the center, but once you get this part through, the rest should be easy to do. So I'm gonna go ahead and keep adding more circles. Just make sure that all the sides look as even as possible. So that's why I'm kind of like just filling in on the sides now. And after that, I am going to start drawing some curved lines, just like the ones that you guys did at the beginning of the center circle. And that's just going to make your daisy kind of like finish off faster, but kind of like coming back to that original curved lined sequence that you have from the one you did earlier. So I'm going to go ahead and keep adding more curved lines all around, and this is going to be easy if you go on like a clock wise kind of direction, so that way this moves along a little bit better. Just again, remember not to draw above something as you already drew. Just make sure that you keep it as neat as possible. And now that we're getting close to the edge, it's starting to look like they're going to meet. Um, Now, because of that, you have two options. Either you draw it right under, or you're gonna end up having these lines kind of um, overlapping on top of each other. So remember that when you are doing drawings, you could always improvise, or doesn't have to be completely perfect the first time around. Um, you could either get rid of some lines, or you could keep them. So now next thing that I'm going to work on is the petals. Now for that, I am drawing a cross line, kind of, sort of. I'm drawing lines on the top, the bottom, the left, the right, and also in diagonal, kind of like an X. And that's because around these lines, I'm going to draw the main petals that I want to have for this flower. Okay, so remember that to make the flower or petals, you need to use curved lines around these lines that I marked. Now the edge of the top or the tip of the petal is going to look a little broken, so that way it gives it the petal effect a little bit better. Just again, make sure that you use these lines that I drew as a guide as to where those petals are gonna go, and to make sure that you have those curved lines kind of like meet at the end of those markings that I did. Okay, so I'm kind of like finishing off here. Also keep in mind that you have that outer line. So remember, the reason why you have that outer circle, I'm sorry, is because you want to be able to measure how tall or the height or how long your petals are going to be, right? So make sure that you don't come off of those lines. If you messed up, which I kind of like did for some of these, it's okay, because you are going to have a chance to fix that. Okay, now after you're done drawing those petals, you're going to start drawing the rest, but they're going to be overlapping. What does that mean? It means that you're going to have petals that you're not going to see fully, but you're going to see part of it around your fully shown petals. Okay, so right now, as you see, I am working on those petals that are going to go behind those full petals. Again, they're overlapping, so meaning that they're going to go behind those frontal or main petals. Okay, doesn't mean that they're more important, it just means that they stand out a little better. Okay, and they are going to help us make this process a little easier. Okay, so I'm trying to keep in my petals inside of that marking that we had of that outer circle. And as you can see, I'm just adding these lines. They're still kind of like curved in a way, but they're sequentially overlapping from the others. Okay. Now, do all of the petals have to have the same size? Some of them can, some of them don't have to, because again, flowers are very unique, and they have some petals that are all different sizes for different reasons. It might be because they're naturally that way, or sometimes because some petals came out shorter, some of them are broken, you name it. So um, I'm gonna go ahead and continue adding some petals in here. Now remember that you want to draw lightly as you go. I'm just doing this a little bit darker or putting more pressure with my pencil just for the video purposes. Um, but you have to make sure that you do it as light in case you want to erase anything from your drawing. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and keep adding some petals on the left side so that way we can finish up. And next thing that you're going to do is you're going to need a pen because you are going to be outlining this drawing with a black pen. Make sure you do not use a Sharpie marker. Make sure you use a black pen or a Sharpie pen so that way you have a better result for this drawing. Now I'm going to go ahead and work on these petals before I actually move on to tracing. I want to get rid of some things. I want to, kind of like enhance some of my petals. So I'm going to go ahead and start erasing some things that I don't want. So for example, that outer line that I drew at the beginning, I don't need it anymore because I already have my petals, so I can actually get rid of that. And before we actually start doing the process of outlining, you need some lines that will come from the center of your petal, and they're going to feel like markings. So the reason why you want to do these lines is because that's what's going to give your petals the look of a petal. So now the way you gotta do them is make sure that they all come from the center, and you're not going to draw them per se. Just pretend like you're kind of like scratching your paper with a pencil, because that number one is going to make this process quicker, And number two, because it's going to make it look like that texture that you want for the center of the petal, or in this case, the bottom of the petal, which comes from the center of your flower. Okay, so now I'm gonna go ahead and keep adding lines, and yes, all of the petals need these lines. Now, the ones that are overlapped all the way in the back, you won't have to add a lot of lines for those, but you still need to have those little lines for all of the petals. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and keep adding these lines as I go. And this is actually coming out really nice. So I'm hoping that you guys are satisfied so far with your flower. So it's starting to look like a flower. Okay, so now that we have this, I'm gonna go ahead and do the stem. And the stem, I'm making these two curved lines. They meet at the end, but then I'm going to do some details here at the top, and that's not going to be the last part of the petal. Um, I'm sorry, the stem. I'm going to actually add here at the bottom two extra curved lines just to kind of like give it a little bit more movement in a way. And that should be good for now, I think. Um, Next thing is we're going to outline. I kind of made this a little bit quicker in the video so that way you guys don't get bored of me just tracing over and over, but it's basically just tracing everything you already did. I know that tracing could be a little time consuming, but I need you to make sure that you take your time with it, make it look neat, and make sure that you trace what you actually drew, because if you start tracing random things, your flower is gonna look a little off. And you guys did a good job on the first part. Okay, so right here, after you trace over with the pen, you can erase those eraser markings. Now this is an optional thing. If you would like to color your flower, you're more than welcome to. For this part, I printed a picture of an actual daisy so that way I could follow the values for my flower. Thanks for watching.